And we're live. So, hello, welcome along to Breakout Blueprints, part 2 of Personal Success Toolkit. And look, my name is Stuart Harris. I'm the host of the show today, but I have an awesome panel who were here with me last week and they're here again this week. And I'll introduce them in just a minute. Before I do, I just want to talk about what Personal Success Toolkit is all about. It's a series of 4 hangouts that we've been running. We're into part 2 today, as I mentioned. The first part was all about your mission statement and having direction in your life and knowing where you're going. And like if you're going on a journey, if you don't know where you're going, you're just going to go nowhere. So this applies to life as much as anywhere else as well. Today we're going to talk about meditation, and meditation is about really stilling and calming yourself, clearing the noise and the clutter, creating a clarity and a focus, and then an empowerment process. We're going to talk about most of that today in this session. Part 3 and Part 4, which will be in the next couple of weeks, is about firstly visualization, how you can really take yourself to another level and drive towards your goals and objectives using visualization. And then finally, part 4 will be about action, taking action, which is for many people a real big stumbling block because they just don't seem to be able to take that first step to get that thing happening that's going to take them where they want to go. And at the end of their lives, they sit there and regret the fact that they just couldn't take that first step. So coming back to today, what we're talking about is why successful people meditate, and how simple and easy it is for you to do this too. I'm going to introduce my guest right now, and first and foremost I'd like to introduce the wonderful Virginia Parsons from lifeenhancement.com. Welcome, Virginia. Good to see you again.
Great to see you, Stuart.
And Cindy London is here from London Life Coaching. Welcome, Cindy. Good to see you today,
Stuart.
too.
Thank you for inviting me. Hi.
It's lovely to have you. And also Lisa Ingalls from Interstate Coaching. Welcome, Lisa. It's great to have you along as well.
Hello, Stuart and Cindy and Virginia. Great to be here.
And look, the panel I've got here, I've really carefully selected because their expertise is right across the board here, and they're going to really add a lot of value to what we're talking about. So stay tuned and listen in. And before we kick off, perhaps if you can just tell us where you're coming in from, just pop it into the comments below the screen here, and tell us a little bit about yourself if you've got time, but just tell us where you're coming from. And also you can use the comments box for asking us a question. So anytime through this hangout, pop in a question and we'll be able to answer that. And that's true too if you're coming in after we've had the hangout but you're looking at the replay. So please put in a question and we'll be able to respond to that as well. So kicking off today, why successful people meditate and how simple and easy it is for you too. And one of the first things I think is really important about meditation is the way you can achieve a block to clear out the noise and still your mind. And I perhaps want to kick off, maybe Virginia, if I can come to you, how do we go about a simple meditation process that really calms us, quietens us, and stills everything and keeps everything else out?
Well, Stuart, I have been meditating 40-some years. And what I have discovered that makes it easiest for people who I've been teaching this to is very simple. And it's based around our breath. You know, people don't think about this very often, but I like to emphasize that, you know, we need our breath more than anything else just to live. And if you think about it, you know, we can live weeks without food, we can live days without water, but we can only survive a few minutes without our breath. So when you bring the breath into the formula and you focus on the breath, this is something that's so easy for people to do. So it's a matter of, you know, you set an intention to still the mind, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to just follow your breath, because it's something that's automatically happening. Now, what I often do with people is add a little something to it, and that is what I call the fingertip technique. And so when a person is inhaling, I suggest that they just squeeze their fingertip together. And the out breath is the releasing breath. It is the letting go of tension and stress breath. So at the same time, I suggest that they release the fingertip from touching. And then again on the in-breath, squeeze it and collect any stress. And on the out-breath, release the fingers and release the stress. And just by following that simple technique and allowing the mind to do nothing but focus on the breath or those two activities, it tends to clear out all the chatter, you know, that part of the brain that just wants to be busy, 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 thinking about what you're going to have for dinner the next, you know, later tonight, or, you know, what your tasks are to do. And the whole intention of meditation is to calm the mind, and the best way to calm the mind is through the breath.
And breathing is such an important process, Virginia, and I think once you pick up a proper process for breathing, you can do a number of things, not only meditation, but also a number of different things during your day to relieve stress and anxiety, or to calm yourself and take control of whatever's going on around you. And Lisa, you know, or have quite a lot of expertise around breathing. Do you want to add something to what Virginia's just been talking about?
Yeah, I love this, and I love that Virginia like immediately went to the breath, because I've created an entire program for meditating while moving using the breath. So I'm right there with you, Virginia. I'm so on board with the breath. The thing with, first of all, I'll go back to point on what Virginia said at the very end there, is the purpose of meditation is to calm the mind, and I think that a lot of people have this misconception that, okay, as soon as I meditate, I'm supposed to be clear of everything, or at least beginners feel that way, and then when that doesn't happen, they get like, I'm not doing it right. And I think I'd like to just put in there that the purpose of meditation is really, in the beginning, yeah, you will clear your mind, but in the beginning, it's really to become a witness, an observer of what's happening, become aware of what's happening, what thoughts are going on, and realizing I am not my thoughts, I am not my feelings, and using the breath as the vehicle to take us into that space is amazing. And I'll just for a moment speak to the powers of the breath. We know that the ancients have been using the breath for obviously thousands and thousands of years, the ancient yogis and Buddha and Jesus Christ. And so this is something that we know, but also from a scientific standpoint, and Virginia is a hypnotherapist, you probably know this even better than I do, around the physiological qualities of the breath, and that the breath can induce a brainwave state called an alpha brainwave state, which I talk a lot about in the work that I do, that when we can slow our breath down to a certain degree, it will actually change our brainwave state from this active beta brainwave state that we're in into an alpha brainwave state. So we can literally use the breath to induce the very brainwave state that we need to harness in order to achieve that meditative state. So I'll end my little piece right there just to give food for thought, and let Cynthia have the ground on this too.
Yeah, and Cindy, you know, getting down to the alpha and the theta state of brainwaves is an important part of meditation. Are you able to elaborate a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. So you have various levels of brainwave activities. Beta is very active. There's high beta, which is very anxious. Then there's beta, which is active and when you're able to concentrate on something. Then there's alpha, which is a quieter state, a more meditative state. Theta, which is when you're starting to go to sleep. And delta, which is deep sleep. So although, Virginia, you may disagree with that a little bit, that theta may be beginning of sleep. But in any event, as the brain settles down and the number of brain waves per minute reduces, the brain gets quieter and you go from beta to alpha to theta to delta. when we're in a very high beta state, which is an anxious state, we're not able to think very clearly or very creatively. When our mind is very active, although not anxious, again, we're not able to think as clearly and creatively. By being able to reduce the waves to a more alpha state, we can get into a more calmer state, and we're able to access a more calmer, we're able to access more clarity, more calmness, and in doing that, we're releasing neurochemicals that are creating a calmer state in our bodies. Does that answer what you just asked me?
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and you know, it's really highlighting the physical process that's going on inside the body that allows meditation to really be effective for us, and why everyone should really learn to do this. It's such a simple thing, and it's not mysterious. And perhaps, Lisa, if I can come back to you, can you just perhaps elaborate on why meditation works and what are the key benefits that are in it for everyone?
Sure. Well, I think we've hit on it already with the idea that meditation works because it allows us, one, to have a calm mind. I think from my perspective, one of the things that makes meditation so valuable is we are able to observe our thoughts. We're able to become the observer of our thoughts and feelings instead of identifying with that we are our thoughts and our feelings. When we go into a meditative state, we can become the observer, eventually let go, depending on where you're at in your level of mastery of meditation. But this idea of one of the benefits being the realization that we are not our thoughts, we are not our feelings, that they are just something that is happening, and we have the choice to either identify with and hold on to, yes, that's who I am and that's how I'm going to feel, or not. Puts us in a place of being very empowered in our life. So one of the biggest benefits, I believe, of meditation is that we understand how we are truly the creator of everything that is happening in our lives. It's happening to us. So that's one of the benefits. Yeah.
Awesome, and it's you know, it's important to understand that, you know, in meditation there's a physical process happening, and then there's also the mental process. And whilst these can seem together, they're also separate. And by virtue of the fact that you get into a state where you can manage both of these aspects individually and together, it creates a completely different control mechanism, for want of a better term, for the aspects that Lisa and Cindy have just talked about. Now, just very quickly, ladies, I just want to perhaps give our viewers some forms of, or some techniques of meditation that they can use and take away. Virginia, can you perhaps give us a short form meditation technique that people can use for themselves?
Well, for beginners, I think, again, I'm going to go back to the breath, because a beginner can be somewhat anxious about what is this all about. And if they just understand that there's some wonderful physiological benefits to just calming the mind by following the breath. And again, as I had mentioned, I use that finger release technique. So there's not much more to it than taking a few deep breaths, allowing a person to close their eyes and start to focus on the length of their breath. So when someone's more anxious, they may be breathing more shallowly, only focusing on the top third of their lung capacity. So as I encourage them to take deeper breaths, and then again, release with that finger release, and also relax the jaw and almost think about releasing it with a sigh. So instead of just blowing it out purposely, it is a releasing like this. And in the process, Something as simple as that, doing that for a few minutes, not being anxious about it, not worrying about where the mind goes, just very gently guiding your mind back to your breath, and that release exhalation is a very simple way for them to get started. And I just want to add something about the physiology of this, because I think it's important for a beginner to know that there's such wonderful benefits by something as simple as that, and doing it for a few minutes. A few times a day. I've even told people to go to the bathroom and do it if they need a quiet space to start with, just so they can have this calm state. But they're automatically lowering their blood pressure. It only happens, it takes a couple minutes to do that, which is of great benefit. They're obviously oxygenating, which the oxygenation that comes from that is going to do a couple things. It's going to lower your adrenaline levels, your epinephrine and your norepinephrine levels. And at the same time, this is just a little bit of the physiology. It's going to raise your serotonin and your dopamine levels. Now, that's a good enough reason in itself, because those are the feel-good hormones. Those are the hormones that help take the stress away and just help you become more calm. So I don't make it complicated for people. I try to keep it very simple, very easy, and very gentle.
And I agree. I get some of my clients just to, if they can find nowhere else, just to go and pop into their car, sit down, and take 5 or 10 minutes out from their day and do a quick little meditation process just to recuperate and get all those physiological things happening that Virginia, you just talked about, and I really appreciate you adding those in there. Cindy, have you got a technique that you'd like to advise people to use?
Well, I wonder if the word meditation throws people off. It sounds more complicated than it is. What I like to do is to have them just sit down and close their eyes, and either they can just watch their thoughts, as Lisa talked about, and witness their thoughts and not judge their thoughts, and just watch them and do that for a few minutes and then stop. The mind, as you probably know, Deepak Chopra talks about the monkey mind, and how the mind is like, he says, the mind is like a drunken monkey, that it jumps from one branch of the tree to another, to another, to another, to another. That's what the mind does. And when we meditate, we simply watch the monkey jump. And after a while, the monkey's not jumping so much. And we get to calm down and calm the beta waves down and get into a more alpha state, and create more serotonin and dopamine, as Virginia had spoken about, and reduce the cortisol levels, which is the stress hormones. And so our bodies become less anxious, and high blood pressure reduces, and it's a wonderful physiological response that we have. Digestion improves, sleep improves, melatonin increases. But as far as the exact technique, it depends on what the person feels comfortable with. If they want to just sit and watch their thoughts, that's one thing they can do. If they want to sit with their eyes closed and say a word to themselves, like amen, or love, or peace, or God, or whatever it is that they feel comfort in saying, they can do that, and not beat themselves up when their mind just starts jumping, because their mind is going to start to jump, because that's what the mind does, just to gently bring it back to whatever word you're saying, or to look at a flower, or to look at a statue, or to look at a candle that you light. It doesn't really matter. It's just a mechanism for getting into this space.
Yeah, thanks for that. And look, as Cindy says, there's lots of different ways of doing this, and it's something that's personal to you. And I'm really glad you also raised the fact that meditation seems to be something bigger than it is, or even more mysterious than it is, and it's really quite a simple function. And when we boil it down, we sort of meditate anyway in our own little ways, but it may not be conducive to creating the benefits and the effects that we've just been talking about. So it's just learning to pull it together. And one of the processes that I was taught very early by a gentleman called Murray Head was just a find a place to relax, to sit properly or lie down properly, and imagining that you're walking down some stairs. And in the process of imagining that you're walking down, you completely relax all of your body from head to toe. Now the number of stairs would be 10, so you'd count back from 10 to 5, and at 5 there'd be a plateau, and then you'd count down the other 5. And whilst I've described it very quickly, when you do this slowly in a comfortable position, imagining that you're relaxing yourself and applying a nice breathing process, it actually takes you down to that alpha state very, very quickly. And once you've practiced it a wee while, you can do it almost instantaneously. And I've always found that very effective. And ladies, I know that that you've all got probably a different way of describing a similar process. But what I want to do now is talk about when we're practicing meditation and all of a sudden we get an anxiety attack or some negative thoughts that pop up that just randomly do from time to time. And Lisa, can I ask you perhaps how you would deal with those thoughts as they emerge? Because I know it happens, especially when you're learning to meditate for the first time. It happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question, and I think Cindy said something about that, just said something which is, and I totally agree with, which is allow those thoughts to be there and those feelings to be there without any judgment about them. We place meaning on the thoughts that we have, and one of the things within meditation, one of the practices within meditation is to just have no attachment to what it is that we're thinking and feeling, and to be able to observe again and witness without judgment. This is just because I'm having this thought or this feeling. It's okay. It's not good or bad. You don't need to label it as such, which is what our mind wants to do when we're not in a practice like this. So meditation is an awesome opportunity, I believe, to be in that space and allow those to come up, those fears, those anxieties to come up, and at the same time not have any judgment about ourselves or about the thought in any way. And that in and of itself is a whole practice within the practice of meditation. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we are starting to talk about some of the other things you can do while you're meditating. And Virginia, focusing on our mission and our life objectives is something that we can introduce after we've been learning to meditate for a wee while. We can start introducing those elements of our mission statement that we would like to really manifest. Can you talk to us a little bit about how one would go about doing that in a meditation?
Well, one of the nice things you can start with is to set an intention for your time of meditation. The intention can be as simple as to calm the mind and nothing more, okay? But it also can be an opportunity for you to say, I'm setting my intention on my specific mission or my goals, something more specific. And then in the process of calming the mind and focusing your breath, then you can allow your intention to come up. And in that, what you're doing is thinking with positive expectations. So now you're directing the meditation to a little bit more than just, an observer. In the process of directing it, it helps keep you focused on what you want, because often what happens in the mind chatter, the monkey mind, as Cindy was talking about, is it distracts us. And we're so used to those distractions. Now, when the mind becomes calm and you're focusing on your intention and your desired results, that's uplifting. Now we're going back to what I talked about last week energetically. You're feeding the body something that is uplifting, inspiring, motivating to you, and that uplifts and raises your energy. And should you discover that one of those negative, sabotaging thoughts starts chattering away in the background, you can just very simply, as we talked before, observe it. And I suggest to people that, why don't you think about putting that on a cloud, and think about just allowing that distracting thought that has nothing to do with who you are or what you're looking for, where you're going, and allow it just to drift away while you refocus. And that's the critical part. You refocus on your purpose, your mission, or the intention you've set for that brief period of time of meditation.
And it's a good point that you raised there too, Virginia, is you know, if you determine the intent of your meditation before you start, you can formulate what you're going to do with it and how you're going to benefit from it, and what sort of results that you want to get out at the end of it. And one of the things that I like to do is to put in a handful of affirmations that help me, that are you know, aligned with what I'm doing and what I want to achieve, and in particular my short-term goals. So I really bundle those in, and I just go through those. I repeat them, I imagine them, and really internalize them through the meditation process. And Cindy, perhaps if I can get you to talk a little bit about how to incorporate those positive elements into a meditation. What are some of the ways that you would do this in a meditation for yourself?
I have made some collages for myself of things that I want, of you know, that's going to stir in me something at a heart space. So if you have something that is a goal, I would suggest putting it into some sort of visual modality, such as a collage or a picture or whatever, and then just look at it and allow your thoughts to go where they're going to go, but bring them back to focusing on that picture. And that's going to activate the right hemisphere of the brain, not just the left hemisphere, which is our logical, sequential mind, but the right hemisphere, which is more creative and non-sequential. And so it activates both hemispheres. And I like that for that reason. The other thing I would like to say, if I could, Stuart, is that the idea of cultivating this observer during meditation is so that once out of meditation, we can move into that observer self when we are confronted with upsetting events. And I don't mean extreme events, but I just mean that we don't go into reaction as quickly. And so it's a way to practice that way of being, so that our overall way of being is much less reactive, and we're calmer. So that was one thing. And the other thing I wanted to say is that when I took transcendental meditation years and years ago, when I was in college, one of the statements that was made to me is that our mind, so the monkey mind, was like a butterfly. And it likes to visit all these different flowers, and here you are trying to remember the mantra or whatever sound it is that you're trying to think of. And you think of this, and then the butterfly goes off to one flower, and then goes off to another flower. But that's just what the mind does. So I just wanted to add that little piece, because I love the analogy of the butterfly, the metaphor.
Yeah, and I love the fact that all of you ladies add this dimension to this conversation, because being a male, I'm very blunt about the concepts, and you know, just the finesse that's coming through from all of you just is good to hear. It's good to hang on to, but it's also, I think, something that's relevant for our viewers, because I think they get a really nice perspective of meditation and how it can really work for them. One of the biggest problems that we all face, I think, over time is, you know, life gets busy, things happen, and we aren't able to practice meditation as and when we want all the time. You know, especially if you're doing traveling or a lot of business. Lisa, perhaps if you'd like to comment on this, what's the best way for us to make sure that we incorporate a meditation ritual and ensure that we're utilizing it and getting the benefits from it on a regular basis?
It's a great question, because to me, it comes back to just commitment. I know even for me, it's hard to get in meditation every single day, but I'm pretty darn committed to my practice and just make a time for myself early in the morning. And whether it ends up being a 10-minute, a 20-minute, or an hour meditation, I don't care. If I'm getting in the practice, that's the point, is getting in the practice. But one of the things that I was acutely aware of when I was working a lot with my clients is this very thing that you're talking about is, okay, well, I'm a busy person and I want to exercise and I want to, you know, I have to work and I have all these other things. How can I get my meditation in? And one of the things that I did, which ended up in me creating a whole meditation around this, is moving meditation and sort of killing two birds with one stone, where you can be moving and having exercise and meditate at the same time. So and it's not directly answering your question, but we can get, the point is we can get creative about how we meditate. It doesn't have to look like you have an altar that you sit in front of in lotus position. You can do the practice of meditation almost anywhere at any time. Well, of course, not driving where you're operating big machinery or anything like that. But the point is, you can get really creative with meditation. One of the ways that I quite often do it is when I'm out on a hike or a run or out for a stroll. And I integrate the breath. I integrate that with my steps. I calm the mind, and I use all of the principles that we're talking about right now while I'm moving my body. So in answer to your question, a piece of it is you can get very creative with how and when you meditate. It's the intention around it. And the other piece is there has to be some level of commitment to it, in the same way that we need to eat every day and drink water and those types of things to keep our body healthy. If we think of our spiritual hygiene as meditation being our spiritual hygiene, and bringing that into our sort of a concept of, oh, okay, if we think of it like that, in the same way I need to take care of my body, to take care of my spirit, my inner being, this is a practice that I do, and I just am committed to it. So.
Yeah, I like that phrase, spiritual hygiene. I think that's superb, and I think that really changes the perspective of what it is and why it's important. Now, Virginia, perhaps if I just ask you, do you want to add anything to that in terms of, you know, how we create a ritual for ourselves?
Well, I go back to keep it simple. Because especially for a beginner, it can feel overwhelming. You mean I have to do this every day for, 15 to 30 minutes? And I say absolutely not. It's not that different than somebody who's starting to incorporate activity or exercise into their life. And, they just recommend go walk for 5 minutes and, start breathing deeper. Well, it's the same thing with the meditation practice. Remember, first of all, it's a practice. It's something that you're practicing. And the more you practice it, even if it's just for 5 minutes, the easier it gets for you to calm everything down and to get really focused. So don't make it a big thing. Make it something that you can do very, very quickly and feel good about that, rather than feeling, oh, I'm not doing enough of it, and I'm not doing it long enough, and I'm never going to get this, or I don't have time right now, so I'm not going to do it at all. And I just say, you can do it. You can do it for a couple of minutes. If you're just working on following your breath and setting the intention that you're calming the mind and focusing on what it is that's important to you, a couple minutes, you can elevate your energy. And as you say, that's spiritual nourishment. That is a wonderful way to go. Just don't overload yourself with, oh, I should. If it feels like an I should be doing this, you probably shouldn't. It needs to feel like, I want to do this, even if it's just for a few minutes. And then there's going to be those times when you say, this is feeling so good, I think I'm going to hang out here a little bit longer and nourish myself a little bit more. So I just keep a real simple, quiet, calm approach to this for everyone.
And I really like that too. Thanks for that, Virginia. Is just keeping it simple, and it doesn't need to be a chore. It's a special time, and it's something that you can do anytime. And I think that was really poignant what you've mentioned there. Now, before we go to the last comments, I'll get each of you to perhaps collect your thoughts on what you'd like to finish off with. I'll just round out by going through some of the real benefits of meditation. Is the ability to calm and still yourself and to deal with the noise, and then create an inner peace. And by virtue of that process and some of the physiological aspects that all our ladies have been talking about, we can be in control. So we can add a dimension of expelling the randomness and unpreparedness and bringing in some form of self-awareness. We can also rebuild our confidence, and meditation is really superb for doing that, particularly in a short-term space. If you feel you're under attack, you're really struggling to cope with something, you can just take yourself out, do a quiet 5-minute meditation, and then all of a sudden you've recovered, you've recuperated, and you've got some form of confidence back in. It also allows you to create some clarity and focus, and that's really useful because we can then add in the dimensions of focusing on where you're going and the things that you want to achieve for yourself, and by virtue of that you can gain some personal empowerment out of every session of meditation that you enter into. For final comments today, perhaps Lisa, may I start with you for the first one?
Sure. I mean, we covered so much stuff. I feel like this is a great. Oh, am I unmuted? It looks like I'm unmuted. Hello. Can you hear me now? You can hear me now. So we covered.
Yeah, we can. We can.
Okay. So we covered such a broad amount of material. I feel like, wow, that was, if I were someone just starting to meditate, there's a lot to go with what we with what we covered here. So really, I think it is simple to go back to just what Virginia was just saying, is keep it simple. When you're just starting, it's easy. The benefits of bringing a practice like this into your life just a little bit at a time are profound over time. You might not see those effects or feel them. You might not think at first like, oh, this is really working and I'm really feeling this difference, but the long-term effects of having that practice in your life are quite profound. So yeah, that's where my little 2 cents to round it up.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's really good. And Cindy, can I come to you? Final words?
I just wanted to add that the mindfulness meditation probably is much easier for people, and what that means is just, you could just do it when you brush your teeth. You could be brushing your teeth and be just excruciatingly focused on exactly what's happening with your toothbrush and how it feels against your teeth and what's happening in your mouth and the taste, and that's where your focus is, and that's a mindfulness meditation, and that would be very super easy to do. Wouldn't you say, Virginia? Either to you. That gardening is a meditation. Weeding your garden is a meditation. That is, you're very focused on that activity, and that's another example of a mindfulness type of meditation. So it doesn't have to be this overwhelmingly big ordeal. Just make it simple. Try it for a very short time period, a few minutes, and just do it a couple days, and you'll see yourself feeling more calm. You'll start to feel differently, and I think it would really be a good benefit for people to try.
Excellent, thank you, Cindy. And Virginia, last words?
Well, I would add that if you decide to meditate and to just bring this into your life on a regular basis, that it's not only going to be a positive impact on you, it's not going to be something that just calms you and gives you all these wonderful physiological benefits, and at the same time also gives you an opportunity to focus on your mission. It's what happens to you because of that, because of how your energy then is projected out to others. So we were talking earlier about it's the ripple effect. When you're calm, when you're focused, when you're at ease in your own body, in your own mind, in your own spirit, you are sending out wonderful waves to so many other people, and they're going to benefit by that as well. So there's just so many reasons to start doing this in your life on a regular basis, and I always end with have some fun with it. It is fun, it does feel good, and it's okay to have some fun with it.
Thank you very much, and I just want to reiterate that it's not a mysterious process. It's something that you're actually doing. It's just you need to become aware of it, and by applying some of the things that you've heard in this this hangout today, you can start this by yourself at any time, anywhere. And you will find that the benefits are very significant over a period of time. And finally, just the one key word: keep it simple. You know, it's not hard. Keep it simple. Just do it. Essentially. Now, what I want to do next is just to promote our part 3 next week, which is coming up. And this is how to visualize your entire world so that you can make it happen too. That's next Monday at the same time, and I think we'll have nearly everybody here from the same panel, so please join us for that event. I'd like to thank all of my ladies, Cindy London, Lisa Ingalls, and Virginia Parsons. Awesome content today, and I really appreciate you providing that and attending with me. Love having you. Look forward to seeing you next week, and I'll round out with that now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.